Thanks so much for getting the channel to 500 subscribers. This obviously means a lot to me, although I do have to wonder what you saw in the videos that made you go, yes, this is good. After the misery of the last subscriber milestone I attempted, I wanted to do something that could be easier to resolve if it all went wrong. Therefore, I've decided to do an SRB2 randomizer. Yes, this idea was shamelessly stolen from Galilus64, what are you going to do about it? But before we can get into the actual randomized playthrough of the game, we must decide on some basic factors. Most importantly, what mods do we throw into the mix to truly make this as chaotic as possible? I've covered a lot of mods over the past year, and because SRB2 has a limit on how many mods can be loaded at once, it's important that I narrow down our choices to one category. If this video does well, then I'll follow this episode up with different category groups, but for today, we're going to be just covering the Sonics I covered. That may sound boring and safe, because it is, but that doesn't mean there isn't some unique characters here. We have quite the stacked cast, with Vanilla Sonic, obviously, Adventure Sonic, Archie Sonic, Bandages, Cross Momentum Sonic, Crystal Sonic, Games Factory Sonic, Green Eyes, Hexog, Junio Sonic, Metal Sonic, Modern Sonic, Neo Sonic, SK Bean, yes, this is a Sonic, Sketchog, Supersonic, and Werehog. So yes, there is some variety, and I'm hoping some of these characters produce some interesting shenanigans, because otherwise this video is going to be narrating over a near standard playthrough of the game. Some of these mods aren't updated to their newest version, but I don't think any of them have had major changes from when I reviewed / played with them. Also, you might notice Oat Sonic isn't on this list, and that's just because he's an older version of Crystal Sonic. This video was constructed in a bit of a weird way, where I would play through an act, then write the section of the script based off of it before going on to the next act. Add in a couple of breaks in between where I didn't play any randomized SRB2 for multiple days, and the video might feel a little disjointed. But, without further ado, onto the video proper. Starting, of course, on Greenflower Mountain Act 1, your first port of call should be to actually set up the character randomizer. There's a fair number of commands you need to set up, between actually turning on the randomizer, showing the timer between character changes, the actual time between changes, and deleting all of those disgusting non-Sonic vanilla characters. Ugh. Personally, I set the timer to swap characters every 10 seconds, which is really what it should be normally instead of 30 seconds. This way, we maximise the potential chaos we can cause while allowing me to actually stand a chance in hell of beating the game like this. I set this up once loaded into the level, although I'm sure you can do this from the main menu, leading me to have a fairly abysmal time for a stage that can easily be beaten in under 45 seconds. Other than that though, this first level has nothing that can remotely challenge you, even while constantly swapping characters. The enemies are endearingly pathetic, and any missed jumps due to constantly changing momentum will lead to nothing more serious than redoing the jump. Greenflower Mountain Act 2 is much the same as Act 1, lacking any major threats, but it was here that I started to notice some of the oddities that came with randomizing all of these separate mods. Most significantly, only some mods were compatible with X Momentum, meaning that only some Sonics were able to do tricks and re-enter a ball state in midair, which instantly meant some characters seemed more appealing than others. X Momentum Sonic, though, is apparently considered a separate character than Vanilla Sonic, despite X Momentum being an overhaul, but more importantly, he'd sometimes reset the music after shuffling in. Finally, all characters would have the same ring loss animation as Games Factory Sonic upon being hit, which can look a little odd when completely normal rings still fly out of you. None of this would really stop you from beating this level though. Greenflower Mountain Act 3 is obviously your first boss, but the advantage of having so many Sonics is that all of them have a homing attack or Thok to attack Eggman. However, it was here that I realised that the randomizer becomes a dangerous game of Russian roulette in certain scenarios like this. During a boss fight, Games Factory Sonic is essentially the bullet, as he instantly loses every ring he has if he gets hit, with no way to get them back. Not too bad now, but I'm sure this will become more of a problem going through. Techno Hill Act 1 is similar to Greenflower Mountain, which makes sense considering that, in the deep and complex lore of Sonic Road Blast 2, Techno Hill is in Greenflower Mountain. Other than missing a few jumps and learning that at least one of the mods in this chaos causes Adventure Sonic to reach speeds previously unbeknownst to mankind, it was all going fine until the end, where, as Archie Sonic, I transformed into Super Sonic, only for Sketchog to immediately drop me out of it. Stupid Sketchog is like a colour knocking me out of my stupid super state. Techno Hill Act 2 was a fairly uneventful level for the most part. Metal Sonic really liked this level, as he appeared like 6 to 7 times in the randomizer. But other than that, the biggest event that happened here was learning X Momentum and Super Adventure Sonic lead to some fairly interesting situations. Spinning 3 inches off the floor was rather humorous though. I had a strange amount of difficulty against the Techno Hill boss, as he managed to hit me a rather embarrassing number of times. In the end though, all of these early bosses will be pretty easy, if just because almost every Sonic has a homing attack. Did manage to land a pretty neat trick shot off the boss and onto the capsule though. Deep Sea Act 1 had a few surprises in store, as I managed to pull off a fairly cinematic run through the early part of the level with Hexog, only to cancel out that bit of epicness by dying as Supersonic. As it turns out, Supersonic can pretty easily become a hindrance with this mod, as he doesn't grant you any rings when swapping in. Got hit last character swap? That's the luck of the randomizer for you. Also, nothing quite beats using the stomp to reach the bottom of that final drop super quickly. Deep Sea Act 2 started with me killing myself with Supersonic again, and ended with me realising just how ridiculous Adventure Sonic's speed increases with these different momentum variables. I also got some pretty epic sections as Modern Sonic. If the leak turns out to be true and Frontiers does end up having levels in a similar vein to Unleashing Generations, I hope the level design can take some notes from this. Starting off as Earless Sonic for the Deep Sea boss was frankly unfair. It did end up causing me to realise just how kind Eggman is with this boss, because if you leave him, he's just content to stay up and fire at you instead of repositioning. Ending the boss by boosting into him was a pretty great way to end it as well. Castle Eggman is probably the first major difficulty spike in the game, evidenced by the fact I got 3 game overs on Act 1 alone, all of them on the final section of the bridge at the end. This is the first level where I'd say the randomizer started to screw me over, especially with how it likes to cycle in characters like Earless Sonic during difficult sections, or Supersonic when I had no rings. Probably the most egregious example of this would probably be after the first game over, where I respawned and immediately died thanks to Supersonic. But hey, at least the Werehog started to get cycled in. I had a surprisingly much easier time with Castle Eggman Act 2. Compared to Act 1, where I died a fair few times to Supersonic cycling in when I had no rings, he didn't even appear this time. There's an inherent sense of satisfaction to ploughing through a level you initially struggled with, so beating this level as easily as I did, even with the handicap of the randomizer, was quite fun. And to top it all off, Adventure Sonic appeared right as I crossed the goal to give us an ending animation. Castle Eggman Act 3 is pretty evil the first time you play it, but as soon as you realise it's really just better to follow the spike balls than to try and jump over them, it's pretty easy. There also isn't a whole lot the randomizer can do to screw you over in this state, as every Sonic is perfectly capable of running and jumping over the floor of thorns. In the second phase of the fight, you again just end up waiting to hit Eggman when he gets close to you, and again, there isn't much the randomizer can do to stop you. ARID Canyon Act 1 had a few mishaps. For one, it was the first time SRB2 has ever crashed on me. Guess my laptop didn't like me running 15 to 20 mods at once on a randomizer. After that was sorted though, I got to see a strange glitch, where every character seems to have been dyed mostly blue, or at least bluer than they once were. Looked pretty cool to be honest. Beyond that, the only struggle with the level were the same complaints I have every time I play this level. Namely, the stupid rope things that always seem to magnetize you until you actually want to land on one. I have no idea why, but for whatever reason, ARID Canyon Act 2 was the point where the frame rate really started chugging. I have no idea why specifically this level started it, but I think it's something to do with how open it is. Learning that Modern Sonic will just despawn the minecart he's in if he's cycled in during those sections was quite humorous, as was failing a trick just barely in front of the signpost. Couldn't let me have my few seconds of glory. ARID Canyon Act 3 was a massive pain. Firstly, Earless Sonic was really zealous in cycling in constantly, meaning there were plenty of times I simply couldn't capitulate on fang stopping in case I got damaged. Secondly, his pop gun is generally really annoying anyway, but especially so when SK Boone loses invincibility in frames after the first 2 bullets, meaning you're killed by the 3rd bullet every time. Thirdly, Supersonic finally arrived after a few levels of freedom and killed me a good 2 or 3 times himself. And after all of that, when I finally did beat him, the game crashed. Dear Lord. After taking a break from this whole randomizer for a few days, I came back with a renewed passion to beat the game quickly. That passion quickly evaporated upon entering Red Volcano Zone. While I have warmed up pretty significantly to Red Volcano since I made the level ranking, where I placed it dead last, no amount of goodwill can compensate for the frustration of dying 3 times and spawning a Supersonic. All things considered, it was going pretty well up until the midway point, where I managed to drop from 15 lives to 4 on a single section. As it turns out, Sonic isn't great at the area with the lava falls, or even on the alternate path. Even upon completing this section, the level confounded me for a while at the lava corridor, until I somehow managed to pull off some shenanigans with SK Bean to somehow beat the level. Egg Rock. Ooh, Egg Rock. Compared to Red Volcano, it felt like there were significantly fewer deaths in Act 1 in this zone, although that doesn't mean it was easy. And I have the honour of probably being the first person to beat that first laser grid corridor without damage boosting though, although that achievement was rendered mute by game over soon after. If you're struggling with any anti-gravity sections in this zone, I recommend changing the setting which keeps your camera fixed in position. Changing it so that it rotates with your character makes this so much easier. Upon completing that, the corridor with the crosses stumped me for a fair while, mostly because operating the camera while running through this is quite the nightmare. Eventually I did get past, appropriately, while Green Ice Speed Sneakers rock music was playing in the background. The final space section of this level also ended up only being beaten due to extra life coming in just in time to mid-air spin dash into the final corridor. Egg Rock is just generally a pretty evil area already, so adding a randomizer to the mix doesn't ultimately change much. Egg Rock Act 2 was also, by Egg Rock standards, surprisingly easy. For once, I got decent enough cycles, which meant that there wasn't much the randomizer actually could do. Beyond an incident where I got damaged and then immediately got cycled supersonic, the only real point of continued difficulty was the final gauntlet. Even so, that was mostly difficult due to the level, not the randomizer, and I still remember the first time I got here, only to go the wrong direction and end up at the start. Ooh, Egg Rock, you're such a funny jokester. Black Core Act 1 is another level I have poor memories of, considering it took me between 40 to 60 attempts before I beat it for the first time. But beyond the now standard supersonic insta-death, the randomizer looks down upon me and blessed me with good cycles. Between SK Bean and Metal Sonic during the spike sections, and extra life to completely avoid the whole lava platforming section, the other Metal Sonic really didn't stand much of a chance. Black Core Act 2, on the other hand, took me about 30 attempts. Everything happened here. The Werehog's hand got stuck floating in the middle of the arena. Character Sprite would randomly get crushed for no reason. Supersonic continues his streak of being the most powerful character in this roster, bar perhaps Modern Sonic, yet never being useful. Games Factory Sonic really wanted to be useful. Archie Sonic and Green Eyes both had homing attacks that would launch them well outside the arena. Metal Sonic refuses to be intimidated by the Werehog, even when he's backed into a corner with no way of escape. I swear to God, Black Core Act 3 better be Supersonic's redemption arc. Black Core Act 3 was not Supersonic's redemption arc. He cycled in once for his signature instant death, then never appeared again. In general though, this boss wasn't bad. I got fairly lucky with how most of the Sonics I cycled in were actively good for boss fight, or at least neutral in them. I did learn that homing attacks do not work well on this guy though. The strangest thing that happened was that the level ended with Metal Sonic using Adventure Sonic's voice lines, which somehow didn't happen through the entirety of the rest of the game. And after the credits rolled, I can say this challenge is well and truly abysmal. Do not try it, it isn't really difficult, but it is awe-inspiringly frustrating. Supersonic is somehow the single most actively harmful character in this group, and probably accounted for about 40% of my deaths alone. It also helped me realise that a lot of characters here are just worse versions of each other. Green Eyes is just a less refined Adventure Sonic, in the same way Sketchhawk is just a less refined Neo Sonic. Also, I never want to do another Sonic mod again. Yes, I'm aware that I'm still going to have to do Pointy Sonic and Max Control Sonic, and there's probably a bunch of other Sonics I haven't covered or yet to be released, but I think I said Sonic enough times in this video to give myself a break from doing them for at least a month or two. Once again, I have to thank all of you guys for helping me reach 500 subscribers. Don't quote me on this, but I think I'm the only one doing SRB2 mod reviews, at least as a regular series, which probably helped speed things up, considering I am literally the one person you guys can go for this kind of content. Despite the fact I'm pretty comfortably filling a niche, I'd like to diversify my content. Obviously, I'd like to do more Remedy videos, although the one video I did on this topic didn't exactly go down well, so we'll see if any future videos do better. I'd also like to do some content based off the IDW Sonic comics. It's probably going to be a copy of Sonic Speed Reading, although I plan on doing more of a brief overview of whole arcs rather than a comprehensive look at individual issues. Thanks for watching, and ciao.